Yeah, the Etrog came to Houston about 15 years ago. Of course, it comes to Houston every year because rabbis order it from Israel, because that's where most of them are grown that are used for ritual purposes. They aren't grown very well in this country. There is a man in California called the Etrog man who is not Jewish, but he does have an orchard. I've not been able to contact him. He doesn't have an email, and he's very hard to get a hold of. At any rate, somebody encouraged him to grow etrogs in this country. It's not easy to do. Um, if you're a master gardener, or if you're just a gardener, you don't have to be a master gardener. If you're a gardener and you see a seed, you're just have to plant it. I mean, there's nothing else you can do with a seed but plant it to see what happens. And about, I guess, 15 years ago, I guess you would know when the rabbi, how long the rabbi's been here. What, just in about 15 years, I guess?
Yes.
Um, he ordered, I knew that he had ordered etrog from Israel and for the high holy days, for Sukkot. And I didn't know a lot about them because former rabbis had not made a big deal with etrogs. And I was a little surprised. So I asked Rabbi Grossman, Gross, I asked Steve if when he was through with the etrog, could I have it? You know, it was pretty bold, but I did that. And so I took the etrog and I cut it open and I planted the seeds, and they don't grow very well here. You can make them grow. It's not a really beautiful tree. I didn't take a picture of the tree because it's not great. It's a citrus. Botanically, it's called Citrus medica. It's very much like a lemon. Here's an etrog. I don't know if you can see it very well. How's that? Can you see that?
Yes.
This is an etrog, and there are 5 more like this in my backyard. I actually have 6 etrog trees back there. Only 3 of them are actually bearing this year. The other 3, I guess, are taking the year off or something. At any rate, they grew, and I was a little surprised because 5 years after I planted the seed, it started producing etrogs, the fruit. This is unusual because it usually takes longer, but this is good. So starting in about 4 years after the rabbi got here, there were blossoms. The following year, there were etrogs. And I've taken them to the Sunday school. And 1 year, every child in the Sunday school planted an etrog seed. I would love to know if any of those etrogs are still alive. I know the rabbi's kids planted a couple, so I'll have to ask him sometime. Anyway, we had really, really hard freezes about 5, 6 years ago, and I lost all of my etrog trees. I had 4 of them at that point that were bearing fruit, but they were too big to cover and too big to move indoors. And so they just froze. All right. But I had some seedlings, which were still alive because they weren't out in the cold weather. So at any rate, they grew. And 2 years ago, those seedlings started blossoming. And this year I have, as I said, 8 etrogs in the backyard. One of them got sunburned, so it didn't survive. But 6 of them are still in really good shape. And you saw one of them a minute ago. Here it is again. They're like a lemon. This one weighs 1 pound, 1 ounce. That's a lot of etrog. So there you go. Yeah, it has a very smooth skin. A lot of the etrogs that you see are kind of rough. If the rabbi shows you the one, I don't know if he ordered them this year since we weren't probably going to be able to do much with them. At any rate, some of them are very wrinkly looking skin. They're not particularly attractive. They have a wonderful odor. If you scratch the skin, they smell a lot like either a lime or a lemon. And Justin just disappeared. At any rate, they, for ritual purposes, hello, for ritual purposes, etrogs have to be perfect. That means they can't have any black spots on them. They can't be rubbed. They can't have rubbed on a limb. And so that's why they are difficult to grow, because it's very easy with weather being as it is, that I'm looking at a blank screen here. I don't know why that is.
You can't see any of us? Or?
Oh, there you are. I can see you now. Yeah. Yeah, I can see 3 or 4 people. Anyway, I did know a grower here in Houston who had an etrog tree, and it looked really sad when I went down to visit him. Lived in Lake Jackson. And so I gave him one of my seedlings because his looked so sad. But he said he tried to grow them and he tried to sell them on eBay, but people kept asking him to take another picture because they have to be perfect. And if they're not perfect, they can't be used for ritual purposes. They also cannot be grafted. If you buy a citrus here in Houston, it's probably grafted, like an orange or a Meyer lemon. A lot of people have Meyer lemons. A lot of people have limes. All of those are grafted onto a rootstock that will survive better in our weather around here. But you can't do that with an etrog. It has to be grown from a seed, can't be grafted. Okay, so mine are pure. This one's pretty good. It has a couple little brown spots on one side. So what do you do with an etrog anyway? Well, you can use it for ritual purposes, and you can wave it with the lulav, you know, with the myrtle and the palm, and that's lovely and it's wonderful. But then what do you do? Well, you could give it to me and I'd plant some more seeds, but they're also used, since only a small portion of the ones that are grown in Israel are actually saleable as ritual etrogs. The rest of them are used for, the peel is put into vodka, for flavoring vodka, a good thing. They're also, the skin, the peel is used to make citron. And if you have ever made fruit cake at Christmas time or Hanukkah time or whatever, if you've ever made fruit cake, then you know that you can buy citron in grocery stores, which is basically just candied citrus peel. And so it's also used for that purpose. It's also, in the olden days, it was also used for things like, it had some medicinal uses. The essential oil in the peel is supposed to have had to be antibiotic. In West tropical Africa, the citron is used only as a medicine, particularly against rheumatism. Doesn't tell me how they do that. I don't know if they drink it or not. Flowers are used medicinally by the Chinese. In Malaya, a decoction of the fruit is taken to drive off evil spirits. So if you've got any of those around, you might want to try that. It is used to improve the appetite and relieve stomachache. So you can see that, like a lot of other unusual fruits and vegetables, it has some different uses in different countries depending on how they deal with it. So it's a slow growing tree. It can get to be 8 feet tall. I think the one that I took this citron off of is only probably about 4 feet tall, but there's another one back there that has 4 etrogs on it, and it is about probably 7 feet tall. They grow in a pot, they grow in the ground. They are, unfortunately, since they are a citrus, they actually have the same problem that most citrus here in Houston do, and that's the citrus leaf miner, which makes the, well, a leaf miner means the insect gets inside the leaf and it makes it curl and makes it look ugly. Doesn't kill the tree, but it does make it look pretty bad. So I think that's probably about all I can tell you about its citron. Oh, it tastes. If you open it up, I don't know if you can see. Can you see this? Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, that's what the inside looks like. So you can see that that's pretty much like any other, like a lemon that you'd open up. It usually has lots of seeds in it. I think it only took two of the etrogs to plant a tree for every child that was in the Sunday school whenever we did that some years ago. It grows very slowly, doesn't ever get huge. I took the citrus, I took it to a citrus tasting group one night, people who are fruit growers on the Gulf Coast. And they have a fruit tasting, they have a citrus tasting meetings every once in a while. I took it and one of the county agents said it tasted like a margarita. So I'm thinking it's more like a lime than a lemon, but it is definitely very, very tart. Doesn't have a lot of juice. It's mostly peel. It's a lot of peel. So it's good for, and I'm thinking maybe this year I might try making some marmalade. So I'll let you know how that turns out. Anybody have any questions or anything they want to say about this? Everybody went to sleep while I was talking.
What other items do you grow at your home?
Oh, well, I give for the Speakers Bureau, I give a talk called Plants of the Bible, which covers, well, you can imagine, there are 110 plants that you can talk about that show up in the Bible. Etrog is one of those. Actually, in the Bible, it's called that goodly tree. It isn't called an etrog. Actually, there was a time when they thought the etrog might have been the fruit in the Garden of Eden. But most scholars now believe that that was an apricot and not, and if you've ever tasted an etrog, you'd say, no, I don't think so. I don't think Adam or anybody else would have taken a bite out of that. So, so yes, and so I have an olive tree. I have a carob, which of course is kind of famous in the Bible too. I have grown myrtle. That's a pretty little bush. Before we tore the landscaping out at the temple, when we rebuilt the new building, we did have a myrtle bush out there, which was really, really nice. But it got destroyed because the people who were doing the building weren't being careful and nobody was watering it and, you know, all that good stuff. So, so yeah, there's, and let's see what else I've got. That's pretty much it as far as the Bible plant, unless you talk, you know, you talk about a lot of the herbs are mentioned in the Bible, like dill and saffron and that sort of stuff. So I have quite a bit of those back there. Because it's always fun. If you're talking about them, you can show people what they look like. So there you go. That's plants. Yes, Justin.
No, I was going to say if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, I would be happy to try to answer.
Good, Marilyn.
What kind of olives do you have on the olive tree?
It's just it's a regular olive. This olive tree, actually, I bought it at Trader Joe's. So I'm not quite sure. It didn't have much of a tag on it, so it didn't give me botanical information, and it has never had fruit on it. I've only had it for a couple of years. It takes quite a few years for the fruit to
I'm just wondering.
Yeah, well, I think it's just a plain old little green olive. It doesn't any, but I'll let you know if I find out anything more about that.
Etrogs are real big, like the lemons were when we were in Italy.
Yeah.
they make the limoncello with are real big like that.
Well, you know, this is a pound, so
Yeah.
that's
Maybe
pretty big.
created, yeah.
Yeah. And I think 4 or 5 of the ones that are out there are about the same size, so.
I'm wondering, is it possible to grow an olive in a planter,
Yes.
in a planter?
Yes, you can, yeah. Yeah, you need a couple trees, but yes, you can.
And cross fertilize. Is they cross fertilize one another?
pollinate, cross pollinate.
That's what I mean. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I don't think so. You don't need 2 different ones. You can just have the same. And if you buy sometimes you buy them, they're actually 2 in the same pot. The one that I have is a double. I'm going to probably plant it in the ground this year.
That's a pretty big pot, I would imagine.
Well, it will need to be eventually. Right now, the olive is only probably about 4 feet tall, so it's in a big pot. Yeah. The etrogs, there's only one in the ground. The rest of them are all in pots, and even this one that produced the 4 etrogs this year is 7 feet tall, and it's in a very big pot.
Wow.
It's happy. Obviously it's happy. It gave me 4 etrogs. So, anything else?
How long did it take for the etrog to bloom after you planted it?
It
Did
takes
it take
4 years. It takes 4 years.
years?
4
Mm.
years from seed to bloom, and it hardly ever has a fruit this first year. You'll see a bloom, and it won't make a fruit. The next year, once you see the bloom, the next year you can be pretty sure that you'll get at least 1 etrog. And it's a small plant. I mean, it looks kind of silly. If you see this hanging on to this little tree, I mean, you say, what on earth did God have in mind? You know, so it's interesting. It's just fun to do. But the blooms, if you've ever had a Meyer lemon in your backyard or any kind of a citrus, the blooms, the odor, the aroma that you get from is just wonderful. And the same thing is true of the etrog. The peel, if you scratch it, it just has a really nice lemony, citrusy flavor to it. So it's really nice. It's fun to do.
Oh, Rabbi's happy.
Yeah, well, in the rabbi. Well, last year, I think, or the last time I got them, there were, I gave several to the school so that they could pass them around and really get to know an etrog. So, okay, any other questions?
Have you ever grown an avocado?
Yes, oh yeah. Yeah, you can grow avocados. Mort and I, you know, we managed the Turning Point Garden for 9 years. And we had 2 avocado trees up there, and we grew avocados there. I don't grow them in my backyard. It's too small, and avocado trees get very big. I do have a blood orange back there and a nectarine, but that's about it. So thank you for your attention. I hope you had fun.